participation interest. You can't just lay down a map and say, okay, well, we're going to have a walking bus that goes this way and this way and this way. It only works when you have particular kids in a particular location and an adult volunteer, and that all lines up. And then you plan those routes in a very custom or individual way based on their needs. So it's very structured. We are now in the process of following up, monitoring. My parent liaison has been really, really active in doing this. I can't overstate the importance of her work in this, because she's really had to communicate. She's had to make the walk. She's had to be out on the bridge. I've been out on the bridge. We've been recruiting and talking and sharing and emphasizing this as an option for people, and she's worked very, very hard. I think really stretched her skills and learned a lot. And we're now in that process of engaging in the ongoing communication of maintaining a program and saying, okay, this is what we wanted to do. Is it happening? And then that, what I talked about, like with being able to call a hotline for maintenance on the bridge, getting the crossing guards to get out there and take a look at it every single day, every single shift, and then communicating with the department within the city that is responsible for maintaining that is another thing that we're working on.
And that's something that's new, correct? There were not crossing guards there last year.
That was new this year, as of the first day of school, and they're there on both sides, so they can supervise students on that walk. And I've been out there a number of times. It's important to have those people there, because they're particularly on the west side of the freeway. It's a very busy street. The east side of the freeway is almost quiet. It's just a little loop within the neighborhood. But the west side is just, it's that expressway between Thomas and McDowell, and people fly. But it's safe because it's well supervised.
And there's a school zone there now.
There is. The city has worked very diligently to provide signage, the designated crossing area, and all the pieces that support that. We've also been working with PD to have the speed bands that monitor and enforce the speed zone in that area. So I present Walking the School Bus as a solution, again, to all of those issues. We met with parents on July 18th, July 25th, and August 1st. Our August 1st meeting was our most highly publicized. We had probably about 150 families, and it was really dealing with all the ramifications of changing the transportation plan. So while I outlined the changes and talked about making Machan with the walk, we're presenting this as an option and emphasizing that critical message of how, hey, we're here and we're going to make this work as a community. We were then at each of those events able to solicit volunteers, parent and student, and get their interest. And so then we held parent training on September 6th, and the first Walking School Bus walked to school on the Tuesday after Labor Day. All of the people, the adults who participate, Phoenix Children's has been really helpful with this. They've given us, and Dr. Wagner was trying to get me to come up here wearing my vest, wearing the umbrella. I chose not to, and he is disappointed, and he'll take it out on me later, but I think it's, I'm more comfortable this way right now. But during the week, you could see me in that vest. Umbrella, what's that?
You're on top of the freeway?
I could be there, I could be on either side. They get t-shirts. They also gave us a lot of incentive items to give to the kids. So we got bookmarks, charms, reflectors, pedometers, and the charms are these little people that they get when they walk. And our office manager just went out on her own and purchased a bunch of bottled water and shared that with not only the Walking School Bus participants, but many of our walkers, children and adults who were walking when it was very hot.
Mr. Dupin, you said that it started after Labor Day, so the first few weeks of school, was there transportation provided still? Well, how was it?
No, the difference is that, again, this is a very structured thing. So you don't just get with the nearest adult and walk to school. You have to sign up. There has to be a roster of participants created, because while it is a parent responsibility and a parent-run program, we're sponsoring it, and we want to make sure that our people are well equipped to feel like they're part of the program and to be safe while doing it. So it just took time. It takes time. So the transportation plan took effect, and our parents provided their own transportation, and they continue to do so at a pretty wide scale. Our results at the present time, we initially had 63 students sign up for participation. Of those, 15 participate on a consistent basis. The program is run by 4 volunteer parents. We have 4 different routes, 2 of which come from 20th Street Greenfield and 2 that come from 20th Street Oak, which is the route that crosses the bridge. And in terms of measurables, where our current enrollment is only 24 kids under where we were 100th day. And we did have a number of students withdraw, not a lot, 12, 15, and enroll at Whittier, because that's like our most direct competition. It was close to that side of the district. They have all returned since school started. And I'm really proud of that, and I do attribute some of this initiative to helping to maintain that enrollment.
Mr. Dugan, 15 students are actively participating daily, but the changes we made with our transportation policy affected how many students, 150 or 200? I don't remember.
Well, it affected closer to 300.
Okay, and so we've, I guess, impacted 300 students and only 15 are actively utilizing our alternative.
Well, there
Is that
are
one way to look at it?
all the challenges that I started with are still there.
Yeah.
It's only been 6 to 8 weeks of school, and the parents, particularly that issue around viability and safety, they still have those concerns. And in the time since school started, they've also figured out other ways. So of those 68 that initially signed up, many of them are coming to school and going home in a car. Many of the neighborhoods have organized carpools.
Yeah.
We regularly see that, and I didn't see that as frequently before.
Right.
So they have figured some things out, and they're managing to get to school. They've just not yet opted into what is a very different way of approaching school transportation. This is against a lot of what we do as an American culture. We don't typically walk anywhere in an urban environment, let alone something like this. So it is some retraining.
Okay, well, going back to the objectives of building community and the health benefits, do you have a goal of students that you would like to see utilizing this?
Well, I would like to see, I don't, because I don't know what is realistic, but I would like to see, upwards of 50 students regularly participating, 75. I feel like that would be a good, solid critical mass. It would be over 10% of the school population.
Yeah.
I think the potential is there. We have the desire to align it to our Kids Rock program, where every time they walk, they accrue miles for their marathon participation and things like that, but we haven't started to do that yet. We need more parents. The way that it works is really for safety and for supervision. You only want 5 kids per every adult. So in order to have 75 children participating, you need 15 adults to commit. And that is significant because of the constraints of work schedules, the concerns of reliability, and it takes a good bit of time to educate our families about the benefits of being a volunteer in the school, and in particular, a volunteer in this way.
So when will you know that this is an effective program? Like, what's the time frame? Like, when you can look back and say, you know what, that really worked, or it didn't really work?
Well, I think that if we could reach that, and I'm throwing 75 out there, but I would have to think on it a little bit more and think about, whether that's a realistic and rigorous goal for the school. But I believe that it is. If we could hit
I mean,
that.
like a time frame, like after 1 school year, after 2 school years, after a half.
I think, Carl, it needs to be evaluated on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
Because, right now we're coming to the end of the quarter. We're coming to almost to a month of implementation. And, we can't wait till the end of the year to make changes. I kind of want to tell you that I won't accept it not being successful. I can't think of one thing that we've started at the school that we've stopped doing since I've been there. But monitoring its participation on a quarterly basis, making these adjustments, making sure the bridge gets cleaned up, making sure that all those parents that are in our line to pick up their children at the end of the day receive information on a regular basis about this option, and that they have an opportunity to get involved in some specific way are critical pieces of the plan. Those dates, those materials haven't been developed yet, but we have the system now in place to be able to do it. So I think of it as something we really want to focus on for this year, monitored quarterly at least, and use that to measure our success with it. That.
I have a few questions, unless someone else does. First of all, you mentioned liability several times. How have we addressed liability? What do we need to do? I mean, is it an issue that as long as there's more than one adult together, that you don't have to, have fingerprinting and all that other stuff? Parents, I'm guessing, don't have to have, I don't know, do the parents have to have fingerprint clearance cards? Well, how does this work?
We investigated it because of the nature of where the work happens as a volunteer. They're not a high-level volunteer that would be working within the school along with students. So they don't have to they're not subjected to the fingerprint requirement. Initially, some of our first round of materials went home. There's an application they have to complete. They have to identify themselves, give their address, names of children. And, we know many of the parents within the school. And we know the ones that are going to be quality volunteers, I guess, and the ones that are frequently present. And that's kind of where we started. So they're not subject to the same kind of criteria in terms of fingerprint clearance. They are, I would say, taking on a personal liability when they supervise children. However, they're on their way to school, so we have an equal responsibility to bear the liability, I guess, of that, but it isn't formally spelled out. Well, I was telling some kids this afternoon as they were walking home after the football game, I am responsible for you until you get to your door. Therefore, you will go home right now. My mom said I don't have to be home till 7. So I'm the principal, and I said you have to be home by 6:15. Go. He didn't argue. He went. And so that's kind of how we share the liability, getting them home.
Of course, there would be liability also in transporting students on buses too. I'm assuming we have, insurance either way. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I also wanted to point out, you did mention safe routes to school.